Good afternoon or good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from today. And welcome to this SBR InFocus webinar support for the June 2025 exams. My name is Hazel McLucas and I work as an Education Partner Support Manager at ACCA. Our session, Manage Your Approach, Master Your Exam Strategy, is designed to help you with the upcoming exam preparation. And today, Tom Clendon has joined us to impart his SBR knowledge. During the session, Tom will showcase how to present exam answers effectively for higher marks using examples. He'll also share his insights on common student challenges, important tips, and answers to questions frequently asked by students. And then towards the end of the session, we'll also have a live Q&A. So as the title suggests, this session is an opportunity to learn the exam approach and design your strategy in a way that it can maximise your preparation for the June exams. So before I hand over to Tom, I'd like to just cover a couple of housekeeping items quite quickly. At the bottom of the screen, there are a number of icons that you can use. There's a help icon, which provides resources and information to resolve any technical issues you might experience. There are icons for both the slides and the media player, and you'll need both of these throughout the webinar, so make sure you've got them selected. You'll also see an attendee chat, which I can see a number of you are saying hello in, and that'll allow you to engage with fellow webinar attendees. But it is important that you don't share any personal information in that chat. And there's also a resource list, which is an icon that looks like a file. And if you click this, you'll be able to access resources relevant to today's webinar, including some direct links. You can rearrange your screen to suit and resize the windows, but if at any point you can't hear what we're saying or see any of the visuals, the best thing to do is refresh your browser. Registering for this webinar means that you'll be sent an email tomorrow with details on how you can listen to it again. So don't worry if you miss something or you have technical issues, you'll be able to access the recording. I'm going to hand over to Tom in a moment and I'll be back with you towards the end of the session. But if you'd like to ask Tom or ACC a question, then please post them in the Q&A box on your screen. Please note we can't guarantee responding to everyone directly, either verbally or in the web chat, but we hope that the questions that we share will be helpful to everyone that's on the webinar today. So I'll hand over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Hazel. Hi, welcome everybody. Look, wouldn't it be brilliant if, as a result of this presentation, you felt more confident at passing SBR, if you had learned something, but actually I hope you're not going to learn too much, yeah? And wouldn't it be brilliant if you had a strategy going forward as to what to do between now and the examination itself? And really, that's my objective. That's what I want you to get out of this session. Now, one way of engaging with this process is for you to ask me big questions, technical questions. And as Hazel has said, please use the Q&A. Please use the Q&A. But I will also be asking you questions, yeah, on the attendee chat. And I've just posted something on the attendee chat. I'll be using the attendee chat to ask you silly questions. So my first silly question is, can you hear me? And if you can hear me, can you put a Y so that I know you're there? Can you put a Y on the attendee chat so I know that you can all hear me? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Nicola. Yeah, thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Nabil. You can hear me. There's a very slight time delay. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Right, okay, let's get cracking. Yeah, let's get cracking. And the first little thing that I want to say is just to very, very briefly introduce myself. I am an ACCA member, which means I did these exams myself when I was working I remember what it was like to juggle the pressures of work and the pressures of study. So thank you for giving up this time. I have spent my career, helping ACCA students, achieve their qualification. I am, and I have been for the last half a dozen years, a wholly independent individual working, for your benefit. And I work with ACCA on these types of webinars. I work with ACCA producing some of the material in the background. You'll come across my voice, for example, on the debrief of the June SBR mock. So I have that privilege. And I'm very grateful. And I'm here for your support. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm active on YouTube. So those are ways that you should also be able to access some of my resources. Today is about 4 things. This is my brief. How to present your answers effectively, challenges that you're facing, and frequently asked questions. And those are questions which have been submitted in advance. But as I have said, and as Hazel has said, there will be a live Q&A session at the end. And what I'd like you to do is, if you have any questions, to submit them on the Q&A section rather than on the attendee chat. The attendee chat is lots of noise, and I'll be using that from time to time. How to present your answers effectively. You've got to make friends with the marker. You've got to be comfortable with how you communicate. Now, I was tempted to talk about question 2. I was tempted to talk about ethics. And I was tempted to remind you to break your answer down, to structure your answer, to make sure that you link the ethical principles with the case, and that you don't just write out the ethical principles because there are no marks. But what I have decided to do instead is to think about question 1. If there is a video lag or a little difference for some of you, maybe that's to do with your Wi-Fi and buffering. But as Hazel said, this session is being recorded. So if you do miss out on anything, you will be sent a full copy of the recording. So please be patient on that basis. I have read and digested and reflected on the examiner's reports and at the recent examiner's meeting. And therefore, this informs what I am telling you. And I'm looking here for low-hanging fruit. I'm looking here to enforce and to enforce best practice. And the first of these points is, when you are answering your pre-populated spreadsheet, use separate columns. A small minority of students think that they can only use one column and put all of the numbers in there. That makes it difficult to mark. You should be using separate columns. Yeah, one adjustment in one column, or the double entry or the complete issue that you're dealing with in one column. And then if it's another problem, you deal with it in a separate column and they're headed properly. Time management, doing things which don't earn you marks but take up time, is madness. You do not need to produce a final answer. You do not need to cross-cast the rows. You do not need to have a balance sheet which balances. You are earning no marks for cross-casting the rows, and you are earning no marks for downcasting a final column. So don't bother doing it. Yes, I know the model answer shows that. Yes, I know the model answer shows that. But you are not responsible for producing the model answer. You are responsible for passing this examination, and time is so against you. The spreadsheet is there. You can use formula, but just be careful. That's what I'm going to say. Just be careful. This is not, well, these are my words, but I'm not original because I am reiterating the information as passed down by the examining team and the markers. Downcasting means summing. Yes, Katie, downcasting means summing. You do not need to sum up. You do not need to add up your columns or your rows. And if that saves you 30 seconds, if that saves you a minute, maybe that minute is going to get you the extra mark that's going to get you over the time. Mertabet, time management, that's what I'm trying to help you with here. So avoid putting unreferenced numbers in a cell as part of a formula. Try and make the marker be able to mark your script without looking at the formula. Yeah, if you want to be friends with the marker, they should be able to understand what you're doing without a big formula. It's SBR. It's not, the numbers are not going to be requiring a lot of formula. So try not to do that. So let me show you how that actually looks like. Yeah, so on the left, you've got the question. And remember, the pre-populated spreadsheet is part of the response area. That's what you can manipulate. You won't be able to manipulate the exhibit, but you will be able to manipulate the response area. Hasnell, correct. You just enter the adjustments in the columns. So what I've got highlighted next is a good thing and a bad thing. Across the top, that's good. Across the top, that's what you should be doing, showing the columns and referencing. The highlight that is a column is a bad thing to do. There's no marks available for that highlighted numbers as the column, but the highlighted row is what you should be doing. I am looking for low-hanging fruit. I am looking to make sure that you get the easy marks. I find it very sad when students don't get a mark at all because they have used the incorrect signage in the spreadsheet. Because if you put a number as a minus, or you don't, or you put the number as a positive when it should be a negative, you don't get the mark. Markers need to have the right number and the right signage, effectively, yeah, to reward you. And for me, the best way of teaching, the best way of explaining these things is through an example. Elizabeth, if you're asked to calculate goodwill, you will get the goodwill calculation. You will get marks for the goodwill calculation in the goodwill calculation. All right, so that would be a separate calculation that you're doing. I'm talking about manipulating the pre-populated spreadsheet. So this is what we're talking about. The parent has bought goods for $20,000 and has sold them to the subsidiary for $30,000, but at the reporting date, 1/4 of the goods remain unsold. So I hope you're digesting that. Now you can see already I've written an explanation. Group accounts are prepared as if the group were a single economic entity. This reflects the economic reality and ensures a faithful representation. Although question 1 will require you to update a pre-populated spreadsheet, it is also inevitably the case that you will be asked to explain, to justify the adjustments you are making. So the adjustments that we are making for the intra-company transaction are justified under the single entity concept. And that's why those numbers there are given. So the intra-company sale and purchase has to be eliminated. Ahmed, yes. How much? How much should we be eliminating? 20 or 30? You can use the attendee chat to tell me whether you think we should be eliminating 20 or 30. No, it doesn't, Louis. No, it doesn't. 20 or 30. Motivex says 30. Gamma says 30. Matt says 30. 30 is overwhelmingly the popular answer, and that is the correct number that we are looking to adjust for. No, Prashat, that is incorrect, Prashat, as you are about to see. Thank you, Jennifer. The answer is 30. The correct answer is 30. What are we going to do in the cost of sales figure? What are we going to do in cost of sales? In the cost of sales, and I'm dealing with one thing at a time. I'm talking about the intracompany sale and purchase. I'm not talking about the PUP. We'll deal with the provision for unrealized profit in a moment. When we talk about the cost of sales, are we talking about the cost of sales here? What do you want me to do in respect of the cost of sales? Do you want me to plus 30 or minus 30? What's the adjustment that we are looking to make in respect of eliminating the intracompany sale? What adjustment to the minus 300 are we looking to do, plus or minus? Anita says plus. Azar says plus. Positive. Yeah. Now, Suzanne, a couple of you then said minus. Now let's think about this. That minus 300, you want to make it a smaller number. And if you want to make it a smaller number, you are going to have to do a physical plus. You're going to have to do a physical plus. So you can see there, the cost of sales needs to be reduced to 270. So in order to eliminate, in order to remove the intracompany transaction between the parent and the sub, which was at 30,000, you have to show the cost of sales adjustment as a positive figure. And I am pausing for a moment. You eliminate the whole transaction and you eliminate the whole 30, top and bottom, revenue and cost of sales. Now, I'm not going to talk about the journal entry, but it would be debit revenue, credit cost of sales, because you only get the marks if you actually put the adjustment in of minus 30 and plus 30. Now I'm thinking about the provision for unrealized profit. Now I'm thinking about the provision for unrealized profit. And in order to explain, in order to show, in order to talk about the provision for unrealized profit, I'm going to talk about why, I'm going to talk about how, and I'm going to talk about the amount. Because it may well be in the exam, you have to earn the marks for doing that. Now, the reason we are making, the why, the reason we are making a provision for unrealized profit is because of the single entity concept. Although the seller, the parent, has made a profit by selling to the sub, the marriage, if I sell something to my wife, although I make a profit, the marriage doesn't make a profit if she hasn't sold it on. So we've got to have a provision for unrealized profit because of the single entity concept. I want the profit of the group. I want the inventory at the cost to the group. And at the moment, the unsold inventory is at the cost that the sub has paid for it, which is the wrong figure. One more time. At the moment, the inventory, the subsidiary has bought the inventory for 30, but actually the group has only bought it for 20, and a quarter of that remains. So there is an unrealized profit element within it. So that is why we make a provision for unrealized profit. How we make the provision for unrealized profit is a debit and a credit. We are looking to reduce profit. We are looking to debit the P&L. Yeah, we are looking to reduce profit. We're looking to debit the P&L, or in a balance sheet context, retained earnings. Where's the credit? Where is the credit? Where is the credit? Not in the P&L. You won't see it in the P&L. The credit would be in inventory. And where is that inventory appearing? Where is the inventory in the accounts? Where in the answer? Where in the financial statements is inventory? Yes, I know it's credit inventory. Yes, I know it's credit inventory. But where is inventory being presented? Thank you very much, Priscilla. Bless you, love you, hug you, squeeze you. You're crediting the balance sheet. So we don't see that. When you're doing a group profit and loss account, it's ironically almost dangerous sometimes to think too much about the debit and the credit, because you're not seeing both sides of the transaction within the profit and loss account. If you're in a balance sheet, I'm more comfortable talking about debits and credits because you can see both sides of the entry of what you're doing. So that's how we are doing it. What we are wanting to do, is to find out the amount. Now, I have seen our journal entries a must, only if you're asked for them, Olga. If you're asked, then you have to answer the question. All right? So if you're asked for journals, you should give journals. And occasionally they do pop up. Occasionally. If you're asked to update a pre-populated spreadsheet, you must update a pre-populated spreadsheet, because we have to answer the question as it is set. And every exam has pre-populated spreadsheets. Excellent, Olga. Thank you. How much is the provision for unrealized profit? I have already seen a number of you already correctly calculate the unrealized profit. 2,500 is being offered up by Radiston. Thank you. The parent has bought the goods for 20 and sold them to the sub for 30. If all of those goods remain unsold, the unrealized profit would be 10,000. If all of the goods remain unsold, the unrealized profit would be 10,000. So one way of computing the provision for unrealized profit of 2,500 is to take the selling price less the cost to give you the 10, to give you, and say a quarter of those are unsold, and therefore it's 2.5. Another way would be to think about the markup and the margin, because if you bought it for 20 and you've sold it for 50, you've got a markup of 50%. You've added on 50%. And therefore the selling price represents 150% of the original cost. So you could have worked it out as a quarter of 30,000 and then, yeah, 1/3. I don't mind. I don't mind how your brain works. Doesn't matter. Now that you've got the 2,500, what we are looking to do is to put that number. So there'd be a mark for calculating that number. There's now a separate mark for putting it in the pre-populated spreadsheet. And do we put it in as plus or minus? Do we put it in as plus or minus in our adjustment column? And there's a mark riding on this. The examining team tell me time and time again, that people get this wrong. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Jennifer. This is excellent work. This is excellent work. Yeah. On the pre-populated spreadsheet, try it out for yourself, whether you can put brackets or not. I don't think you can. I think it would be a better presentation to show it as a minus number, because by putting it in as a minus number, you make the cost of sales a bigger figure. And by making the cost of sales a bigger figure, you are reducing the profit. So there's a number of you there who I have validated your knowledge, and there's a number of you there who have just got a small thing to take away. So it is not a plus in cost of sales, because in order to make the cost of sales bigger, you need to show it as a minus. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy, and I am moving on. And if we do get a group profit and loss account, you have to think about the impact on the profits attributable to the parent and the profits attributable to the non-controlling interest. What's the situation in this case? Well, the situation in this case is that the parent company is the seller. The situation in this case is the parent company is the seller. And because the parent company is the seller, the adjustment is against the profits of the parent only. It does not depend on the measure of the NCI, Priscilla. That's to do with goodwill impairment. Here, the provision for unrealized profit is to do with whether or not we adjust the NCI. Whether or not we adjust the NCI for the PUP depends on whether the sub is the seller, and the sub is not the seller. So this is an adjustment which is effectively, you can think of as going through the parent company's books. The parent is the seller, and therefore we adjust the parent's profits only. If the sub was the seller, you would therefore have to adjust the subsidiaries. You would have to adjust the NCI's share. I've just changed the question. So the seller, the seller, the 80% sub has bought goods and sold the goods to the parent. So the seller now is the sub. The seller now is the sub. So the same mark for calculating the PUP, the same mark for dealing with it, but now the correct thing to do is to split the PUP with the NCI, because the sub is the seller. Thank you, Ashwin. Margarita, don't adjust the gross profit column, adjust the expense column. Sorry, I don't adjust the gross profit row, adjust the expense row. I'm pausing for a moment. Yeah, just to make sure that we're comfortable with this. Many candidates use incorrect signage when adjusting the numbers in the spreadsheet, but not the people who are attending this session. It will affect the net assets of Subjamai, but that's not the question we're being asked. We're showing the profits. Why is the NCI here being a plus? Because we're showing the profits. So this is an extract. So it's an extract only. So the profit for the year presumably is 93 for the group, of which 60 belongs to the parent and 33 belongs to the NCI. I mean, I'm just comfortable with that. Yeah. I'm moving on. Cash flow. Do you like cash flow? An interesting one. This is the reconciliation of profit to the cash generated from operating activity. And in this scenario, the profit number is correct. And the depreciation is understated by 12, and there's a profit on disposal that is not captured. I like cash flow. I think cash flow is relatively logical. And I don't know what's coming up in the exam. One more time, I don't know what is coming up in the exam. But I do know that cash flow is on the syllabus. And I do know that if it comes up in question 1, it's a 30-mark question. And you need to be able to pick up some low-hanging fruit. Remember that depreciation is added back in the reconciliation of profit to cash. Remember that depreciation is added back in the reconciliation of profit to cash. So if depreciation is understated by 12, we're going to have to adjust for an additional add back of 12. And the profit on the disposal is a boost to profit, but is not a boost to cash. Cash goes up by the sale proceeds, not the profit. So there's a yin and there's a yang. You add back the impairment loss, you add back the depreciation. If you've included in profit, the P&L, the profit on the disposal, you're going to have to deduct that. So the intention is effectively to add back depreciation of 12, and the effectively is to introduce the profit of 3 into the reconciliation. And so the adjustments that you would be making would be a positive 12 in the depreciation column and a negative 3 in the adjustment column to introduce the profit on disposal. So we're not adding back the profit on disposal, we're minusing the profit on disposal. Yeah, this is in the reconciliation of profit to cash flow. So we deduct the profit on disposal, correct? Adana, correct. Okay, I'm interested in picking some low-hanging fruit. Profit on disposal wasn't captured. It was Jeremiah because it said in the question the profit was already calculated correctly. So the profit's already calculated correctly. So if it hadn't been calculated correctly, I would then be adjusting the profit line as well. How you gain more marks in ethics, that's not the subject of today's lecture. If you want to have that question answered, Ahmed, if you want any question answered, yeah, put it in the Q&A. Put it in the Q&A, and then I will address it at the end. All right? But I will forget that question. So please address it in that. Right. Moving on. Student challenges that you are facing. Let me address some of these student challenges. You have 3 hours and 15 minutes in the exam. If you had 6 hours and 30 minutes, would the exam be easy? Would the exam be easier if you had twice the amount of time? Of course it is. Of course it will be. All right? But you haven't got twice the amount of time. So what you need to be able to do, ideally, is to get a bit quicker. is to get a bit quicker. Your knowledge level is never going to be perfect. And I think at this stage of the game, you have to accept the fact that this is a challenging exam, an applied exam, and you need a working knowledge. And it is easier, I think, and more important, I think, at this stage of the game, between now and the exam, to improve your time management, to get a bit quicker. And to get a bit quicker, you've got to be like Usain Bolt. And how did Usain Bolt practice and get as fast as he did? By practicing, by doing questions to time. How can you get faster? How can you make time slow down? It's not easy, but by doing questions to time. The ACCA have released the pre-mock. I passed my driving test when I was 17. I wonder how old you were when you passed your driving test. I still remember my driving test. It's a great feeling of empowerment and adulthood and responsibility to be able to drive a car and to pass that driving test. And I know what I did the hour before my driving test. My driving instructor took me out and we did a mock driving test. He pretended he was the examiner and he took me around and asked me the questions and took me around the route and did everything. So that's what I want you to do, not the hour, not immediately before the exam, but you have an opportunity of doing the mock examination, the ACCA mock examination. Now, some of you on this call are my own students, so a shout out for them. Hey, welcome everybody. Remember, you're doing my mock this weekend, which I will be marking. If you're with me on my course, that's fantastic. But everybody also has the opportunity of doing the ACCA pre-mock. And that, is something I would recommend that everybody does. Everybody does, so that you have that feeling that you can pass the examination and you won't be a learner anymore. Where's this? I've never been here. I've never been to the city. This is a place within the UK. Does anybody recognize where that particular ground is? Anybody know the name of that football stadium? It's not Vicarage Road. No, it's not Vicarage Road. It's not Tottenham Hotspur. It's Anfield, Liverpool, isn't it? It's Liverpool, right? Never been there. I'm not a Liverpool fan, not particularly a football fan. Now, Liverpool this season have won the Premiership. And they've won the Premiership by being the best team. And their home record is better than their away record. When they play at home, they normally win. I think they got beaten by Notts Forest early in the season. When they play at home, they normally win because they're familiar with the changing room. They're familiar with the crowd. They're familiar with the size of the pitch. There's something psychological about being at home that makes you perform better. I want your home to be the ACCA practice platform. I want you to do the ACCA June mock, pre-mock, question 1, Halliwell. I want you to do that on the ACCA practice platform so you get used to it. I want you to do it to time. And you can access those answers. I've recorded answers that will be published on the ACCA YouTube channel. You can also find them on my own YouTube channel. You can also find, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've also published my written answer to, question 1. Make the ACCA practice platform your home, because if you make it your home, you are comfortable there and you can fulfill your potential. All right. So to recap, practice questions to time. You improve your exam technique and you improve your knowledge when you review the answers. Allocate your time. Don't think necessarily 45 minutes for a 25-mark question. Think it's a 5-mark exercise and move on after 8 or 9 minutes. You've got to keep moving. JMO, JMO, JMO. Ahmed, I will not answer your question until the very end if we have time and if you've included it in the Q&A. Exam strategy on the day. By practicing mocks, you will develop your exam strategy on the day. JMO, JMO, JMO. Do we know what JMO stands for? I hope you do. It's a key part of your exam strategy. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Kareem. Absolutely correct. Yeah, JMO. Now, what I've got here is some questions which have already been asked in advance, which I have been asked to address. Please, can you kindly do a video on IFRS S1 and IFRS S2? Well, ACCA have already done that and published something on their ACCA YouTube channel. So therefore, if you search ACCA sustainability, IFRS S1, ACCA, you will find, that video. They're 2 short videos. They're giving you some basic facts. Remember, though, in the exam, you've got to have the judgment and the application, but the starting point is to have a little bit of knowledge. So that's one low-hanging fruit. I have found that the Kaplan model answers are extensive. Difficult to determine which are the key points. I cannot remember all of the points for every question. Wow. Okay. The first thing to say is, you can't play football like Lionel Messi. You can watch him, you can learn from him, you can enjoy him, but you don't need to be Lionel Messi to pass this examination. So the model answers are not representative of what you need to pass the examination. They're not. So don't beat yourself up by being unable to produce an answer of that length. For my students on my course, I produce my own answers, which are relatively short. And you can see some of those, me working through some of those on YouTube. But anyway, look, remember, the same answer won't be asked again. So when you're looking at an answer, try not to memorize the answer. It's not about remembering the answer to pass exam questions, because by definition, that question is not going to be asked again. So underlying the question is a false premise that somehow, if you could remember all the past answers, you'd be able to answer the next question. And I challenge that. I challenge that. That is not going to help you pass the exam. If you had a robotic memory and you could have memorized all of the past exam questions, that would not help you pass the next exam, because the next exam is going to be different. So the key is to try and memorize rather than understand. And in terms of what's the key point, the marking guide. Use the marking guide. Look at the marking guide. Look, again, I'm sorry to say this, students are on my course, I'm able to mark their work, give them the direct feedback. If you are not on a course, if you're on a course, get your marker, get your lecturer to mark your work. Get your lecturer to mark your work. That's what they're there for. That's a real added value. Upwardly manage them. But if you're not on a course at all, do you have an uncle? Do you have a cousin who's a qualified accountant? Are you working with someone who's a qualified accountant? Show them your answer. Your answer should be presented and laid out in a way that they should understand. Asno, if you want to have that question answered, Put it in the drop. Put it in the Q&A. Put it in the Q&A. I'm currently attempting 2 papers simultaneously. This is my 3rd attempt at SBR. I often struggle. How should I manage my time? I'm sorry, my answer to this question is tough love. I'm not particularly helping the person who asked that question, who's already got themselves into a pickle. But this is for the benefit of everybody else. My standing advice is only to have one wife, only to have one husband. My standing advice, is to do one exam at a time. Life is too complicated to have 2 wives, 2 husbands. Life's too complicated to do 2 exams at a time. After all, you've got 4 exam diets. I think you know the answer to this question. Yeah, and it's a straightforward no. That's straightforward no. There's no mark for that answer. If you're doing the UK exam, there's a 5%, 1%. There's a very few students who are doing the UK exam. Last time it's being withdrawn. And if you're doing the UK exam, then there's only a small change to question 3, making sure that you're comfortable with FRS 102. But there is, from September, no UK exam. If you are doing the UK exam, then use the resources that are available there or from ACCA. Look at the study hub. There's an extra chapter in the study hub. What you're looking to concentrate on is FRS 102. But I have addressed here a very small niche particular question. Right, I have left sort of 10 minutes or so in order for me to dive into the questions that you have been answering already, asking already, and let me just try and address some of these. What are the remaining days' strategy? Basically doing exam questions at a time and then reviewing your answers, okay? And making sure that you, by doing questions at a time, you're improving your exam technique, but you're also improving your knowledge. Ideally, you get your tutor to mark them, but you're going to need to learn how to self-review. So yeah, try and mix it up a little bit. Maybe listen to a podcast. Maybe look at the odd article. So mix it up a little bit so that you're not totally stale. But doing questions at a time both improves your exam technique and improves your knowledge. Jamal asks, I would like to know the current issues which might be tested in the up-and-coming exams. Could it be sustainability reporting, which is getting attention these days? Yeah. Sustainability reporting is getting attention. Could be in question 2. Because if you're engaged in greenwashing, that's unethical. If you're not putting in a full and comprehensive disclosure into the sustainability reporting, if you're not complying with S1 and S2, then that's showing incompetence or creative accounting and greenwashing. So it's possible that question 2 could be the area where sustainability comes up. For me, the headline message is in question 4 that you're really thinking about. In question 4, you're really thinking much more about investor focus, helping the investor understand issues rather than a current issue, as such. So I hope that answers your question, Jamal. For somebody who previously got 49, what would you advise they focus on from now until the exam? Well, Yolanda, well done on getting 49. You're resitting this examination. 49 is a tough number to get. But if you're going to fail an exam, I'm pleased that you failed the exam with 49 rather than 39. It shows you were nearly there. Okay? Time management. If you had another 5 minutes, you would have passed. Would have, could have, You didn't? You've now got to get yourself back up to speed as to where you were. Yeah? Practice questions to time. Yeah? It'll be a different exam. You've got to remember that. It'll be a different exam. Ellen asks, do we need to state the standard number in your answers? Nope. Nope. You do not need to state the standard number in your answer whatsoever. Yes, I know the model answer says, I say 16, property, plant and equipment. I know it does. Because it's the model answer. But you do not, there are no marks in any marking guide. There are no marks in any marking guide for repeating the name and number of an accounting standard. You can simply say the standard on revisions requires all three conditions to be met. You do not have to write ISA 37, provision for contingent liabilities and asset. Oh, that's too long. So Ellen, you do not need to state the standard numbers. If you have applied the correct treatment, you will get the marks. If you have applied the correct treatment, you will get the marks. Kindly tell how to gain more marks in the ethics question. Okay. I wish I could have your particular script in front of me, and then I could mark your particular script so I could tell you particularly how you can gain more marks. I can't do that. But what I can do is draw on general experience of how to earn more marks in the ethics question. First of all, you do not, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Generally speaking, in answering an accounting standards question, in answering a question that deals with an IFRS, there is normally a mark for the definition. There is normally a mark for summarizing and giving an overview of the definition. That is not the case in ethics. That is not the case in ethics. Do not write out the 5 ethical principles. Do not write out the 5 ethical principles. That's not going to get you 5 marks. It is not the case. You're in a particular practical situation. So what you need to do is read that situation. You've got 2 professional marks, which buys you another few minutes. Those professional marks are almost earned accidentally. Those professional marks will be given to you if you put together a good answer, if you're considered. So you've got to read the question. Make sure you answer the question. How to gain more marks in ethics questions by being considered and reflective and complete. And by linking, by taking the scenario in the question and the scenario. If you're told someone is qualified, they should be competent. Judge them at a higher standard than if they are somebody who is junior, somebody who is on their first day of work. If somebody is rude, identify that as unprofessional behavior. Link the information in the case to the ethical principle. Link it, and that's how you earn marks. Your answer does not necessarily need, it's not the longest answer. Sometimes the longest answer is full of BS. sometimes the longest answer really doesn't cut the mustard. Because actually, you need to be sharp and to the point, like a dagger. You gain marks by answering the question. You gain marks by answering the question. Hafiz, in the cash flow question, we had a profit on the disposal of 3, which had not been included in the reconciliation of operating profit to cash generated from operating activity. And the reason we included -3 is because the profit had included that profit of 3, but that profit of 3 is not a cash flow. And so if we're trying to reconcile profit to cash, we need to remove the profit on the disposal. That's why we did it. I don't understand sustainability reporting. So give me a tip to understand and apply to the question. Well, watch the video that I've promoted. Yeah, look at the ACCA Study Hub. Look at the article there on sustainability reporting. Make sure you have the basic knowledge of the standard, because you can't apply it to the question until you first of all have the basic understanding. You will gain the understanding by doing some reading, by doing some learning. That's my tip. Can you give us some rough timings we need to look at for achieving? In other words, question 1, what rough amount of time to spend there, asks Sam. Good question. 3 hours and 15 minutes. Can I park the 15 minutes to one side? Think about it as a 3-hour exam for now. 3 hours, 180 minutes, 100 marks. So if it says 10 marks, you're thinking 18 minutes. If you're thinking 30 marks, then you multiply that by 3, you've got nearly an hour, just under an hour, 54 minutes. That's for the whole of the question. Then you need to break it down and have a look and think about answering the individual parts of each question. So you move on. One of the issues about question 1 is you are sometimes answering question 1 holistically. So if you're doing the adjustment for the intercompany sales and the PUP, I would recommend that you do that adjustment and you do the explanation at the same time. So although part C of the question might be update the pre-populated spreadsheet, and part B might be explain what's going on, you're doing B and C at the same time. Okay? When you practice questions more, you'll understand a little bit more of the context of what I'm saying, because I'm saying from my experience of having done questions. Break everything down, break the time left into the, break your time into the requirement of the question. That 15 minutes is not really reading time. When you open up the exam, the clock starts to tick, you need to start straight away. And if you have an exam strategy that you're doing question 2 first, for example, you go straight into question 2. Do not read question 1, 3, or 4 if your exam strategy is to do question 2. By using a 1.8 minute as your rule of thumb, you've got 15 minutes floating around. Trust me, that buffer, you'll need a moment of rest after the question. That 15 minutes will be used up. Don't worry. Just do not worry about that. Do not worry about that. I'm looking at the questions in the Q&A. Do I need to explain the adjustments for the pre-populated spreadsheet if I've already done so in the previous parts of the question, says Josh? No. No, you don't. You need to answer the question that you've been set with the numbers on the spreadsheet to the words in the narrative. The numbers on the spreadsheet will literally be given by what's on the spreadsheet. If you've done extra journal workings, fair enough, but it's not going to gain you any extra marks. I'm now going to answer my last question. Which comes from Miroslava, do you need to remember the exact definition, or can you use your own rephrasing? You can use your own rephrasing. Yeah? It's more credible to use your own rephrasing and to blend that with the answer, blend that as part of the words from the question. I know there are some closing comments to be made in the next minute or so, so I'm now going to hand back to Hazel. But thank you very much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Tom. And so I am going to just do a couple of slides and we'll be done just in a minute or two. So I hope you've all got time to stick around. And you'll see that on screen I've put a quick poll, and I'm hoping that you'll find it a really easy question. So Tom mentioned during his session about the pre-June 2025 mock and debrief videos. So do you know what the dates that they are available? So do you think it's the 9th of May? Do you think it's the 11th and 16th of May? Do you think it's the 9th and 16th of May? Or are you not sure when they are available to you? So if you select one of the answers on screen, I can see some emojis coming in, some hearts and some thumbs up. So I'm hoping that means that people are confident with the answer and know what those are. But if you want to put your answer in, and then we'll move on and have a look at the results and the answer. So what do you think it is? Is it A, B, C, or D? Oh, I can see some more emojis, which is great. I'll just give you one more minute just to select your answer. So what do you think? If you're not sure, then pick D. I'm going to give you the answer so you'll know soon enough. Right, let's see if I move on to the answers. So overwhelmingly 47% of you picked the 9th and the 16th, and I'm pleased to say that that is actually the right answer. So the mocks are already available, and the debrief videos will be released at the end of this week, and that is perfect timing to schedule it into your revision. You will find a link to these resources on your screen to find out how to access both of them. So if you're not sure, then make sure you take a copy of that link. And as Tom said, it'll help focus your studies. It'll give you an important snapshot of where you are, and it'll also help overcome exam day nerves, just getting used to the platform and used to the exam so you're not surprised on the day. So a final word, just ensuring that you equip yourself with the best resources in your lead up to the exam. And some of these resources, all of these resources have already been mentioned by Tom, but it's good just to make sure that you have the links to them. So you'll find the links in the resources section to the CBE practice platform, the ACCA Study Resources YouTube channel, and the ACCA Study Hub. And these three platforms have a wealth of resources that you can include in your revision plan, including the mocks and debriefs we spoke about, practice tests, the topic explainer videos that Tom mentioned, online study texts, quizzes, and practice questions. So before you leave today's webinar, make sure you save these links and use them going forward in preparing for your exam. So I will bring things to a close now, and I hope you found today's session very useful. As I mentioned at the start, because you've registered for this webinar today, you will receive an email tomorrow with how you can listen to it again. I'd like to thank Tom for extending his support today, and also the team who've supported us in the back end to deliver the session successfully. And finally, thank you to all of you for joining today, and we all wish you the best of luck in your exams. Thank you so much.